Hello, and welcome to Eppendorf Lab Channel, your home for experts and knowledge live. I'm Matthew Yurkevich, a marketing manager for Eppendorf. We're thrilled to have you joining us for our latest webinar entitled Revolutionizing the Research, Digital Tools for Academic Excellence. In this session, our speakers will dive into the challenges faced by academic researchers and explore the latest digital solutions transforming the biotech landscape. We will take an in-depth look at the key challenges and opportunities shaping academic biotech research today, how eLabNext solutions have enhanced efficiency, data management, and research outcomes, and review a case study featuring Sviatoslav Sinovic from Lund University on overcoming challenges and achieving success through integrating the digital lab platform. This will be a joint presentation. From eLabNext, I'm excited to welcome Gabriela Sanchez and Fabio Grattani. Gabriela is an account manager with eLabNext who received a master's in medical biotechnology and specialized in cancer biology before joining eLabNext. Fabio is a key account manager and lab digitalization specialist. He achieved a PhD in molecular biology and then moved into the field of next-generation vaccines. Our guest from Lund University is Sviatoslav Sasinovic. Sviat is a research engineer working in molecular epidemiology, drug resistance, and viral evolution studies for the Clinical Virology Research Group. He will be sharing a case study on the integration of the digital lab platform. It's great to have you all here.
Thank you, Matthew. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you.
Now, before they get started, I would like to direct your attention to the interactive portion of Eppendorf Lab Channel. If you look below the video feed, you will see a short form for submitting questions. After the presentation is completed, we will have a question and answer period where Gabriela, Fabio, and Sviat can address questions you have submitted. If we don't have time to get to every question live, don't worry. The experts will reply via email after the event. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand the reins over to our presenters. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Matthew. Thanks for this opportunity, and thanks for the kind introduction. So, hi, as Matthew told, I'm Fabio Grattani, and I'm here with Gabriela Sanchez and Sviatoslav Sasinovic to talk about lab digitalization in academia. So our presentation is going to pass through 5 points, starting from traditional lab challenges in academia. What is a digital lab platform? Advantages of a digital lab platform in research, the digitalization journey of the clinical virology group in Lund University, and to conclude, a Q&A session. So, as told before, I'm Fabio Grattani, and together with Gabriela Sanchez, Julia Wilke, and Julien Laforest, we are the team for eLabNext, working in the German-speaking region, the DACH area. I am account manager together with Gabriela, and Julia is our custom success, and Julien Laforest is our head of EMEA in Asia Pacific. So let's start talking about the journey from analog to digital. Initially, all the information were passing through, communication were passing through cable, landlines, so the old phones, and all the information were collected and sorted in physical notebooks. Time passed by, digitalization is coming through. From cable phone, we are now working in 1996 with mobile phones, and we are now start to use electronic lab notebooks established in 1994. At this point, the digitalization is impacting only the tools that we are working, so basically the hardware. But nowadays, the digitalization took a step forward. Mobile phones are now smartphone. You will have always everything with you. And the digitalization is now impacting not anymore the hardware, but also the software and the workflow within lab environments. But how this transition is actually happening? So in an ideal lab, you have lab notebook, properly written, neat, clear, everything is clear, everything is standardized, you have your protocol properly stored and organized, all the information are basically easy to follow, to search, and to identify. Your inventory as well as your freezer is properly organized. You have all your reagents, consumables, structure, organized and clean, you don't lose anything. And the digitalization of a lab at this point is mainly composed in many labs by folders in your laptop, and to organize lab notebooks and protocols, and Excel lists to keep track of all your consumables in your lab. But unfortunately, in reality, at least from my experience, this clean and paradisiac environment is never happening. Lab notebooks are always messy. Handwritten is very hard to identify from someone who didn't write the book. Protocols are just piled up. You have several versions of the same protocol. It's very hard to understand which is the update version that you should use for your experiment. Inventory became a mess. You lose track of what you have. You risk to order multiple times the same reagents because you don't find. You risk to overload your lab with expired reagents, which are totally useless for your work. And the freezers became mostly a Tetris level from your Game Boy. And the same is then represented in your PC. The clean, organized folder situation is becoming a mess. You will have maybe lab notebooks repeat in different folders, protocols spread amongst different folders and PCs, and sometimes happen also that your Excel files make a step backward and you start to use back piece of paper with lists to stick around wherever you need. So all this situation create big challenges in a traditional lab in academia. First of all, the lack of information standardization is a big issue because you can have data may be recorded inconsistently across different formats, making very hard to compare, making very hard so to bring forward experiment done by different persons. You risk to lose a lot of time because you have to correct the previous error done by someone else or done easily by you. You have error due by manual data entry. It's very hard to search in all the past records because you have to maybe dig out in between several old and dusty lab notebooks. And all this time is time that you could have better used to perform experiment. You can also have an inefficient use of consumable. As I mentioned, maybe you can have a lot of repetition purchase in your inventory, so you can have overloaded of material that maybe you can then you can leave them to rotten, you have material that expired, you lose track of what is actually functional or not. You can lose data, because as I mentioned before, these lab notebooks, these physical records can be lost, damaged, or easily too complicated for the next one to read what is written. And at the end, the bitter cherry on this cake is that you have reduced experiment reproducibility. So manual record can always lead to not full track of information. So whenever you try to repeat an experiment, you maybe have an issue without having full information to reproduce the same experiment, forcing you again to repeat and repeat over, using again a lot of your time. What is a solution for this mess is a digital lab platform. This is a platform where you will have your protocol, your inventory, and your experiment all together. And in this platform, in this safe space, all these three blocks are going to be interconnected. So your experiment is going to be connected to your inventory together with your protocols, having a clear picture of what's happening in your lab. In a digital lab platform, you can collect and store inventory material, your sample, your experiment, and your protocols. You can identify all these different things in your lab and track them properly. You can analyze your data, which are going to be secure and consistent. You can collaborate easier with your co-workers, accelerating the development of your research. And this is the sweet cherry on this cake. This platform is customizable. This means that you can tailor this tool to your workflow and your processes of your lab. And now I pass the word to Gabriela.
Thank you, Fabio. Yes, so now I will introduce you to what our digital lab platform looks like. So we are eLabNext. And eLabNext was founded in 2010 by two PhD graduates, Erwin Seinen and Wouter de Jong. They are our two co-founders, and they are still very involved with the development of the software. So how the software came about is that they were working at the University of Groningen, and talking in the lab, they realized how many challenges they had to find their samples. And this is something that people working in the lab know very well. It's very hard sometimes to read someone else's handwriting and find a sample in a freezer or find a sample in a box. So they were talking about this challenge and came up with the idea of digitize this inventory format that they were using at the time to find their samples. And this is how eLabNext was born. So from 2010 until now, we are 55 employees worldwide. We have our headquarters are still in Groningen, but we also have an office in the US. And the motto of the company is still intact since they created the company or founded the company. And it's that the company and the software is created by scientists for scientists. So as you saw in the introduction that Matthew gave us, and also in the small introduction that Fabio did, all of our consultants, including customer success, are people that come from a life science background. So they have worked in a lab. And this also allows us to understand a little bit better the workflows that usually researchers go through and that you need to work in the lab or make work in a lab, and how then we can develop a digital lab platform that makes the work for scientists easier and not more complicated. So a little bit more about eLabNext. We have been awarded the Best Value Captera Review in 2023, as well as Best Ease of Use. And we are compliant with the 21 CFR Part 11 of the FDA. If you're not aware of what this means, it means that we are compliant with the electronic signatures that are required in order to submit a paper or to go through any certification of the FDA. We also have GXP compliances. That means that we go with our customers together through this certification. It can be GMP, GLP, and we have the required features that a software needs so that the customers can apply for such a certification. And finally, we are also ISO 27001 certified. This is a certification regarding data security and data management. And usually the server providers are the ones who have the certification, but in our case, it's the company itself. So you can be sure that we are, doing our best efforts to keep all of your information secure. And finally, we are also HIPAA compliant. This is more relevant for customers in hospitals or working with patient information, and it would be valid in an on-premise installation. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the advantages of a digital lab platform. We already heard a lot from Fabio. What are the challenges? What are the problems that we see in a traditional lab where no digitalization tools have been implemented? So in a lab where you are using a digital lab platform, usually you can see more efficiency and productivity. So this is because all of the routine tasks can be automated, and the workflows that you do can be easily found and followed because everything is already outlined for you in the platform. And you can also reduce the time that you're spending on repetitive tasks. So for example, if I'm doing an experiment that is always the same every week, I already have a template for it in my platform that I can just pull up, where it already tells me what protocol to use, what are the samples that I need to find, where are they. All of these things is saving time, because in a non-digital lab, you would need to search for this across different papers, see if the protocol version is up to date, and all of these things. So data management and reproducibility are also better with the digital lab platform. This is just because it's easy to find all of the data because it's stored everything in one place. And reproducibility, of course, increases since I can make sure that I use the same samples, that I follow the same steps of a previous experiment so that I can get the same results. Collaboration and communication, it's also easier with a digital lab platform, since I can easily invite my colleagues to join my group or participate in a specific experiment. I can also collaborate with external users from other groups by inviting them to a specific project, and I can share results across my community very easily. And of course, the fourth one is one that I understand very well, remote access and flexibility. In my time in the lab, the lab notebook had to stay in the lab, so it was very hard to access the information of the experiments that I had done before. Or if I was, trying to get information of someone else's experiment, then I had to go to the lab, ask for the lab notebook where they had it, look for the one that was right, and then find that experiment. In this case, I can access that information from home just by, using a search bar and finding what I want. And so I'm much flexible with the time and, how I can do this from wherever I am and whenever I want. So let's have a look at how these advantages look in the actual platform that we offer to you guys. So the first part of the software that I want to introduce is how you manage your protocols within eLabNext. So on the right side, you see a small video. It's on the loop, so it's keep repeating itself. But this is basically how a protocol looks. So you have different interactive fields where you can create drop-down menus, you can create text fields or formulas. And this way, every protocol has different fields that are always going to be changing according to the experiment where they are used. And it helps you automatically calculate how much you need to pipette, how much you need to weight of specific reagents. In addition to this, the protocol also allows you to see a versioning of the protocol that you're using. So in this case, if this is the protocol that I would need to use in my experiment, I can see that this was created in 2023 by one specific user, in this case, this demo features user, and then I changed it in 2024. So I can see what exactly was changed, how the changes came to be, and then in case the original user who created it thinks that these changes are not really good for the protocol because it's affecting results, you can easily go back to a previous version. So you can see here it says restore this version. So it's one click, and then you can have these changes undone. So the next part of the software is the inventory management system. With the inventory management system, you can visualize your entire lab from sample locations to equipment availability. So on the left side here, you see a full list of the freezers that we have in the lab up until the boxes. And then you see we have clicked now on a sample. We can see the full audit trail. We can assign tasks to colleagues and keep track of those tasks here. And then if I go back to the sample, I can also move it across the box. And you see here, I'm going now to another box, opening. It's very easy to move across all of the inventory and clicking on the information that I need. So I have access to all of the experiments as well and the data of each sample. So in addition to what I just said of the features of the inventory, you can also customize the data or the metadata that you want to add for your samples. So that means if I have, in this case, a cell line, I'm now completing all of the information about my cell line. But all of the fields that you see here, like the cell type and all of these multiple checkboxes, have been configured by the user. So you have the flexibility to add as much data as you want and as much information as you want about a specific sample type. So none of the items here are pre-configured by the software, but rather the user decides how much information do I need to put in or do I want to put in? How do I want to configure this? Is it like a required field that every user needs to complete before saving a sample? Or is it a field that needs to be validated? That means that the text can contain specific characters, specific words, or maybe, for example, for a passage number of a cell line, if I know that in my lab it's always between 0 and 6, I can also put this as a range so that if someone enters 7, then it will appear as an error message. So all of these things, you have the flexibility to decide how you want to configure it for your lab and for your work. And finally, this is very important also for the advantages that we mentioned before, trying to see where your samples have been, right? So the history of the sample that I want to use. In this case, we're staying with the cell line. So you see, I can go to the lineage and see, okay, I want to see, where this cell line came from. And I can see that the cell line was used in an experiment. And if I click then on that experiment, I can see that that experiment was used for expansion most probably. And out of that experiment, I have now 5 new vials. So you're always a click away of the history of your samples and can have all of that information at your hands. And finally, we come to the electronic lab notebook. This is where we keep the experiments and the projects and the studies that you are doing. So you see here on the right, the list of the people who are working in that experiment. As I said, very easy to collaborate. You can add people, you can remove people. And then you have the different sections of the experiment. So you can see you have an introduction, a procedure that would be the linkage between your protocol and your experiment. So you can link a protocol to your experiment, and then you can see which version you're using and everything. You can attach images, as you can see here, which also you can edit within the experiment. So I can add different drawings of my images if I want. And then I can also link my results as files. But this uses a special software that we offer for free, which allows you to link files of third-party softwares and modify them within eLabNext. So this makes it GLP compliant to have all of your results and your information in one single place. So in addition to this, you can easily find your data with our advanced data search. So in the experiment browser, you see that there's this search bar on the top. You can write anything there, including things that are written in the experiment itself, and this should be able to find the correct experiment for you. So all the information that you include in your experiment is searchable and can be filtered out by using these filters or the search bar. Also, for collaboration, you can, of course, assign tasks, the same as we saw before in the samples. You can also assign tasks in the experiments to your colleagues, but also you can add comments on specific sections. So in this case, you see I have added a comment for Fabio, and I have linked Fabio to this comment where you say, can you please review the table? So he will get a notification saying, okay, Gabriela has linked you in this comment. Please, do some action afterwards so that he knows that this is something that I would like him to do. And finally, of course, this is very important. It's a question that we get very often. Okay, my data is everywhere in one single place. What happens if I want to have it somewhere else? What happens if I want to take it out of the software? This is not a problem. You can export your data at any time. So there's a tab in the software which is called File Storage. And then under that tab, you will see the ELN export, which allows you to export all of your projects, all of your studies, and all of your experiments in different data formats at any time that you want. Okay, so now I would like to introduce our guest user for today, Sviatoslav Sasinovic. He's a research engineer at the virology research group at the Lund University, and he has been a customer of eLabNext since 2019. So he will be telling us a little bit of his journey through digitalization of his lab. So Sviat, I give the word to you now.
Thank you, Gabriela. Hello, everyone. My name is Sviatoslav Sasinovic. I'm from Lund University, which is located in the southern of Sweden. And today I would like briefly tell about our team. We are 4 different research groups united under the bigger virology team. And from the name, you can guess that we are doing the virology. Our main focus is molecular epidemiology of the different types of viruses, blood-borne respiratory viruses, cancerogenic viruses. And since we work with the viruses, we work with the different types of samples, starting from human plasma, whole blood. We have nasopharyngeal swabs, we have cell lines. Of course, we propagate the viruses in the lab, so we have different types of viruses. Since we're working we're doing molecular epidemiology, we sequence viral genomes, so we have a lot of extracted viral DNA and RNA. This is regarding our sample types. And yeah, and I would like to show you how we end up with eLabNext, which steps it takes, and why we decided to go to digitalize our lab. So when I entered the team, it was in 2018, and I started to work on my project, and I started hunting the samples in the freezers we have. And it was a bit a nightmare because nobody really knew where the samples were. It was like somewhere in that green freezer. I think it was a top rack somewhere there. So you basically, before planning experiment, you have to allow you 2 or 3 days just to hunt it for the samples. And then I start to look what is available in terms of digitalization, and I evaluated different similar tools like eLabNext. But finally, after all, we end up with eLabNext, and I really like it, I have to say. We use it. We started to use it for inventory all of our samples we have, and now I don't think we have something which is not imported in the database. And we have a different freezers. We have also liquid nitrogen tanks. We have a different, as I mentioned ago, we have a different types of samples. And what I really like with this software, with this solution, what Gabriela mentioned, it is really configurable. I can literally add any relevant metadata to my sample, what I really need, like extraction, RNA extraction date, project name, whatever really I need. And I can see what every my box with the sample have, which type of sample. And I have right now an experiment where I'm working with HIV amplification, and I need some of the samples to be re-extracted. And unfortunately, so what I'm doing is just basically copy my sample IDs and paste them into the search field. And I need to find a plasma sample. So I just select the plasma samples, and voila, here the magic begins. Here all my samples, what I need. And I have to export them into Excel because the freezers where the samples are located, they're in a deep basement, so we don't have an internet connection there. So I have to print my sample ID locations from the Excel. But as you see, it's basically all the metadata I added to my samples. I don't need an aliquotes. I need an original tube of my samples. And I will just remove briefly, quickly, the non-relevant information for me, just to identify the plasma samples I need. So I will remove those fields that I don't need. I'm just leaving the freezer name, the section name, and I will show you later. We will go down to the freezer room, and I will show you how we organized our freezers. All right, everything looks good, so let's print it. And now, so we have here in this deep basement, we have two freezers. So we have a freezer we divided on a bigger sections where we have a drawer, and in each drawer we have 4 boxes if something else is not specified. The same with our second freezer, so it's divided on sections, then each section have a drawer, and in drawer we have a boxes. Okay, I have my list printed here, and we have a freezer named Greyland section A. So let's find and drawer section A6. Okay, so let's open the freezer and see what's inside. Okay, section A should be on the top. Yeah, it's here. And here I have my rack A6. Let's take it away. Good. Okay. Sorry, I have to close the door. Okay, and the box is TESA Project New 02. Yeah, here it is. And the first sample was on the position 1A. Yeah, it's not an easy to take in a cryo gloves, but okay, so yes, R038, exactly. So instead of going to the freezer and looking for the entire freezer, I just went to the room and find exactly my sample, and I know where it is. But it's really important to add the information into the eLabNext first. Yep.
Thank you, Sviat. So I will take it from here. Thank you so much for sharing with us your videos and the information that how it was in your lab and how it is now. It's for us always fun to see how customers get to implement the software, and it really changes over time. As you put in your first slide, like if I want to find a sample or something that I did back in 2012, do you know where it is? And mostly the answer is no, if you don't have such a tool. So it's nice to see how that has been. So thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will continue now with our conclusion. And the first thing that we're going to do is just compare quickly a traditional versus a digital lab. So I used some of the pictures from Sviat here because I found it really interesting how it used to look like in a traditional lab. And of course, this is different freezers, but it's just an example. And I want to point out what these things are that I noticed here. So it's not the freezer type and not even the order of the boxes, but you see that the labels are all handwritten. And then the other side, he has very simple labels like A1, A6, which is very much easier to find and to follow instead of handwritten labels, right? Because if it's handwritten because of the eyes and everything, it's very hard sometimes to understand the handwriting of someone else. On top of that, it's in general hard to understand someone else's handwriting sometimes. It is more difficult when time passes and these samples have been frozen in a freezer. So this is like a general example for you to see how this changes and the impact that it has, and how easy it is to find samples when you keep track of your inventory in a very proper digital way. So in addition to this, the next point would be what Fabio mentioned in the beginning. So the protocols, right? So, I can really 100% agree with this first picture here because my bench used to look like this. I had so many protocols and I had to collaborate with different departments across the lab or across the building, actually. So I had so many protocols, so different versions, and all of them accumulating in my bench. And then if I didn't have them, I had to go back to the original scientist who gave it to me, ask if there was a new version. And it was really always a mess. So it was really never organized. So in a digital lab, you would have all of the protocols in the protocol library where you can easily search for what you want, even if it's not your protocol and if it's someone else's. You can share the protocols across different groups. You can find the different versions. You can make sure that this version is the one that is given out for use in an experiment, or you can even see if the owner of the protocol is working on a new draft. If this is the case, then you can follow up with them and say, okay, should I wait for you to be done? Or maybe can I use this, as it is right now? So it gives you a lot of advantages to have all of these insights. And then finally, we come to the experiment. And I know, the picture is a bit of an exaggeration, but it is kind of like this. If you are trying to look for someone else's experiment in someone else's lab notebook, it can be very challenging. First of all, the lab notebooks are not like infinite. So of course, at some point you're going to end the notebook, and then it starts the fun because there's several lab notebooks in your bench, and then you need to find which one has the correct experiment. And there's no search bar for lab notebooks, so you need to really go through all of them and see, okay, when was it that I did it approximately, and then find the experiment that I want. In a digital lab, on the other hand, as I showed you before, you have a search bar that you can write. You can type the name of the experiment. You can type a sentence or something that you remembered it by, and it will give you the answers that you need immediately. And this doesn't even need to be your experiment because you can also filter for someone else's experiment and get the data that you need for your work. So as a summary and a conclusion, a digital lab helps you with the standardization of the data. It keeps track of your samples and your experiments and your protocols in a standardized manner, and this helps you improve the reproducibility of your results. In addition to this, having the version tracking and the audit trail for all of the changes done to your samples, to your experiments, and to your protocol also helps you keep the integrity of your data. So, and with that, we want to thank you for listening to our talk. We hope you enjoyed it. We want to mention that we do offer you the possibility to test the software for free for 30 days. You can scan the first barcode that you see here, and it will give you or send you to the link where you need to register. And the one on the top is for you to schedule a demonstration of the software with one of us, so that we can show you all of the features and the fun testing solutions that you can have at eLabNext. Thank you so much for your attention.
And thank you very much for your very informative presentation. So for all you listening, if you take a look at the form directly below the video, you can submit any questions you may have for our presenters, and we'll try to get to as many as we can live. But if we don't get to them now, don't worry, we'll get back to you via the email that you provide. Now, I do have some questions. I think the first one is for you, Sviat. What were the challenges when you were introducing eLabNext in your lab?
Thank you for the question. Actually, the challenge was to start to use this because at the beginning, we had thousands of different samples unsorted. Then you have to go really to the freezer, take away your samples, and read the information from any tube and then write it down into the software. Was a really hard part. But once you start it, once you convert unknown samples into the known samples with their position, then it will be much easier.
All right. Thank you very much. Gabriella and Fabio, I think this one's for you. How long does it take to implement the digital lab software in an academic lab?
Thank you, Matthew. I can take this one. So it depends a lot on the lab itself. So there can be a lot of challenges, as Sviat just mentioned to us, like if you have a lot of samples that still need to be, relabeled and then put into the right place. Of course, this is a lot of challenges, but we provide the support that you need through this process. So usually if it's a big lab, we also can provide you with different of trainings and then help you with the setup of the lab. So my question would be, depends on the installation. If it's a small lab, it can be done within a month. If it's a big lab, it can take a couple of months.
Okay. I got one more here, and I think it definitely could apply to all three of you. We've seen protocol, inventory, lab journal functions. When you're viewing the software for the first time, which of those is your favorite to show, or what is the one that gets the new user, the most interested? So when Sviat you were first looking at this, what caught your eye first?
Thank you for the question. Can I start to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking especially for like inventory solution. So that's why I focused only on inventory part first. Yeah, this is basically what touched my eye.
Gabriella, Fabio, do you find there's a particular one that customers or users find the most, enticing?
Hi, thanks for the question, Matthew. So for my personal experience during my time in academia, I had always a lot of issue to understand which was the better protocol to use, which was the most updated. And the eLab protocol provides here a possibility to review all the version and understand which can fit better to the experiment that I was doing. And all the built-in calculation fields would have saved me a lot of time, avoiding calculation error done by me or done by student or PhD student I was supervising. So this would have saved a lot of time and a lot of stress, of course.
So for me, I would have to say that from the experience from talking to customers, it depends a lot on what they're looking for, of course, because we have customers that are only looking for an electronic lab notebook. And in that case, then it's the different features of the ELN and the protocols, as just Fabio mentioned. And there are other customers, such as Sviat, that are looking more for inventory. So, and then in that case, I would think the inventory and all of the features that it has, it's what catches their eye. However, in my personal opinion, I really like the inventory of eLab. So I think it's a very complete one. It offers you the possibility to have everything that you need for your samples. Yeah, I think it's my favorite to show.
I think the video of Sviat going down to the basement to get a sample proves that you want to know where your stuff is. So that inventory management is extremely convenient. Yeah. Well, I think we've pushed well past our scheduled half-hour time, but I want to thank you all so much for your presentation. To learn more about eLabNext and Eppendorf Digitalization Future, visit eLabNext.com. Find out how to elevate your research and digital lab solutions to improve the quality of your life science study, optimize your workflow, and increase productivity. You can request a personal demo or start a 30-day free trial today. We look forward to seeing you all at our next broadcast on Thursday, November 7th. Join our experts for a live demonstration of our latest large-capacity CO2 incubator shaker, the Cell Expert CS220. Discover the only CO2 incubator shaker in the market with an integrated 180-degree sterilization. You can go to eppendorf.com/lab channel to find all the details and save the date in your calendar. If you missed this broadcast or any of our previous events, you can also view all our previous episodes on demand at eppendorf.com/lab channel. Watch all of them on your own time and use the links to contact the experts with any questions, comments, or reactions. So Gabriella, Fabio, Sviat, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you guys have a great day. And on behalf of them and everyone else here at Lab Channel, thank you for taking the time to join us. Until we see you again, stay safe and have a wonderful day.